Wollheim is clearly very interested in psychoanalysis, as I think he thinks it's the best account of the mind that we have.
Can you talk us through a basic model of projection?
So projection is modeled on bodily functions. Mm-hmm. So if the body wants to get rid of something noxious, then you would vomit. Projection is a way for the mind to evacuate something onto something else into the external world, so that figure can then take on the projection. Perhaps just an ordinary example, you might be feeling angry, but at an unconscious level, you might not be aware of the fact that you're angry, but you experience the world around you as full of angry people. If one is angry, mm-hmm. one experiences the world as angry. Klein also thought, though, that there was a positive element to projection, because we don't only project negative emotions onto the external world. We might also project positive emotions into the external world. And Klein thought that projection was a very, very early way in which infants tried to communicate with their mothers. If they had a positive emotion, they might project it onto the mother, asking the mother to hold it. Or if they had a negative emotion, they might project it onto the mother, asking the mother to take away the bad emotion, maybe replace it with something good.
So for Klein, the key to creativity is the overcoming of the depressive position, characterized by the desire to, quote, undo or repair the earlier fantasized destruction of the actual and internalized mother. Or, as Wollheim later put it, the reparative drive or the desire to establish whole object.
Wollheim himself did the best exegetical work on Freud that anybody had done for a long time.
That's interesting.
And Wollheim actually distinguishes between different kinds of projection. So there's one account which he calls simple projection, which I think would be akin to the Freudian and Kleinian accounts. But then Wollheim says there's also something which he calls complex projection. Now, that's not a term that Klein or Freud use. Now, Wollheim says that works of art employ complex projection. What the artist does is she creates a work of art that will look to the viewer as though it is of a piece with the mental state that she is projecting. I think Wollheim does think that one of the ways in which works of art get their expressive properties is via this activity of projection.
Yeah.
But the artist does not mean to simply get rid of his or her emotions. What the artist hopes to do is, by expressing the emotion through the work of art, come to a deeper understanding of them.
Okay.
And I think that's the difference between art and neurosis. The neurotic doesn't want to engage with the painful emotions, whereas the artist wants to do something creative with them, wants to understand where they're coming from, maybe wants to transform them into something else. I think you're right that perhaps the word projection isn't quite right. I mean, even if complex projection has its roots in this more primitive defense mechanism of simple projection, I like what you just said, the Hegelian notion of being at home in the world, because I think it is in a way through projection that we are at home in the world. We feel the world resonating with us. And people who are, say, very, very depressed don't feel at home in the world. Now, I think there's a difference between what the artist is doing and what somebody who's projecting negative emotions is doing. There's a difference between just projecting and expressing, because expression might employ some of the techniques of projection, but not with the aim of getting rid of that emotion.
Mm-hmm. What would you say a Freudian-informed analysis of art appreciation gives us that other forms of art criticism miss out?
It gives you a vastly deeper sense of the author's intentions. The understanding of novelists has been obviously deepened by psychoanalysis, and I think people would accept that. But to think that the understanding of painting is affected by it requires you to switch genres in a way that very few people would be able to do.
Not much can be said about Wollheim's account of expression before you start using notions like projection. So the most you can say without mentioning anything Freudian is that just as we can find landscapes in the flesh to be emotionally colored, so similarly we can find paintings or perhaps the scenes visible in them to be emotionally colored.
I think it's in Painting as an Art, he says, there are some art historians that when they come to criticize paintings, maybe from a psychological perspective, employ a psychology that if they were to live by it in their ordinary lives, would have no friends or loved ones and would be at a loss to explain how they came about.
Okay. Is that unusual?
Absolutely. And lucidly, psychoanalytically informed. I mean, yeah.
Yes. Lucidly, unpack lucidly for me there.
Well, it's no good just saying such and such is the expression of an unconscious fantasy or something like that. You have to spell that out in a lot of detail for people.
The ambassadors.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
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 So tell me a bit more about that.
Well, that's a painting that you appreciate from a Freudian point of view, because it's saying something at once about sex and death.